Hi, this is Kyle Grappone, founder of To the Next Step LLC and author of To the Next Step, your guide from high school and college into the real world. And you're listening to So Booking Cool with Jewel B.
Welcome to So Booking Cool. It's Jewel B. Today's guest is a youth motivational speaker, author, and founder of To the Next Step, an educational and services company that helps prepare high school and college students for their future. He is Kyle Grappone. Kyle, thank you so much, as I said before the call, for rescheduling. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem. I appreciate you having me on.
So you've worked in corporate America for 10 years.
Correct.
So what did you notice? Because I know that you noticed during your career that a lot of people were unhappy. Were those particular positions that people held in which they were unhappy, or was it like more across the board?
It really was across the board. Really what was going on was I worked for a few different companies in different industries. So, early on I had a pretty good base of just kind of experience with working with different people, different backgrounds. And what I was realizing was that a lot of these people were just genuinely unhappy. They would come in every day and they would say things like, "Oh, I can't wait for 5 o'clock," or "Is it Friday yet?" And I was beginning to notice this trend that a lot of people just really were wishing their weeks away. And I thought that to be odd because even though I've had jobs that I didn't particularly enjoy or jobs that I thought maybe I wasn't growing in, I never really felt like I wanted, my week to be over so quick. I wanted to try to enjoy every day or at least remember why I was there. But what I was learning was that a lot of people were really just dissatisfied with the people they had become and the life that they were living. And at first I thought it was a few people, so I kind of kept my eyes open and I asked kind of pointed questions and I would talk to people and then I would talk to coworkers from other jobs. And I began to realize that this wasn't just one company or just one department thing, that this was an actual trend that was going on.
And that inspired you to create To the Next Step, right?
Yeah, so basically what that inspired me to do actually first is simply make sure that I was correct, that I wasn't the only one, that I wasn't working with the wrong people. So what it really inspired me to do is to do my research. So I surveyed over 100 graduates, had informal conversations with a lot more, and I asked very open-ended questions to start, just to see, am I onto something here or am I kind of off base? And I asked questions about people's time in high school and college and what they wish they could do differently. And I would ask questions like, if you could have any job you wanted, what would it be and why? And those were the questions that really gave me the answers that were the basis of what I do today, because a lot of people would say things like they weren't prepared for the real world. They didn't understand what was coming next. They didn't take advantage of their opportunities. They didn't put in enough effort in school. They didn't prepare themselves. When you would talk a little bit about college, they would say things like, I didn't research colleges enough. I didn't research the majors enough. I had no idea what I was doing with student loans. I get that a lot. I actually just wrote a blog post about that today. When it comes to student loans and not understanding the impact on your future. So I came to this realization, and myself as well felt as if I didn't know what was coming next in life. I had been working in jobs that really didn't fit my passion and who I wanted to be. And I felt like if I had tried harder in school, if I had paid more attention, if I had been a little more focused and understood why this was so important, I probably would have done a lot better and I would have been a lot more focused. So that really inspired me to, at first, become a youth motivational speaker for high school and college students, which is something I still do, but eventually, yes, it did motivate me to launch the company that we have today, which is To the Next Step, an educational coaching company.
Was public speaking something that you were always interested in prior to becoming a motivational speaker?
Yes, I was always very good at public speaking. In high school, I did some stand-up comedy, and it was a lot of fun. It wasn't too much of a passion of mine because that's something you really have to be dedicated in, and my humor is more kind of a conversational, kind of off-the-cuff type humor. But I was very talented at public speaking. I did very well in it in school, and I always knew that was a skill of mine. I always knew that I was a good writer and I was a good communicator. So that was something that came naturally to me. So I do say to people who say, oh, I have a lot to say, but I could never be a public speaker. I do tell them that it's not necessarily about being a good public speaker at first. It's about having the right message. because you can learn to communicate. But if you don't have the right message, if you don't have something that people really want to sink their teeth into, that's the real problem. So, but yeah, to answer your original question, I've always been a very gifted public speaker, so that was a big help early on.
And you mentioned like you did do comedy and everything, but it wasn't quite your passion. I would love to know, and I'm sure the listeners would be curious to know as well, like your journey to discovering what your passion was, Kyle.
Sure. So I think it really started, I would have to say, it really started a few years ago when I remember seeing some sort of a post online that my alma mater put up about having graduates come back and speak to these students, and they did this panel. And that kind of started to light a fire in me. You know, it was very simple, and it was just a random post that I saw, but I started to say to myself, you know, I have a lot to say. I want to be able to talk to those kids. I want to be able to say certain things. So that was kind of one passion that started growing. Once I got into corporate America, I realized that I wanted to be working towards something of meaning. I wanted to be helping people directly. And if I wasn't doing that, then something was missing. So those two fires were kind of starting to build, helping people slowly but surely. The more I kind of, looked at that, helping students slowly but surely, the more I looked into that. And I think the third thing was really just wanting to have just some sort of overall purpose, just something to look back on. For me, the idea of simply working a job and then coming home for a few hours, going to bed, and doing the same thing the next day, that wasn't for me. I wanted to be doing a lot more. So it was really just being honest with myself and saying that this idea of what work is supposed to be, of what a career is supposed to be, of what life is supposed to be, is not for everybody. And I realized that kind of lifestyle, how things are supposed to be, that was created by another human, right? So just because that person says it's true, that's the way it's supposed to be, doesn't mean that's the way you have to live your life. And I realized that if I want to help people and I want to do something unique and I want to use my skills for it, then I can go ahead and do it. So that's kind of really how all of that started.
That is really awesome. One of my past guests, Lydia Dean, she's an entrepreneur like yourself, and she's also a humanitarian. And she said that in general, she does not really think that society encourages risk-taking when it comes to going after what you're really passionate about versus settling for something that's stable. So it sounds like you would agree. Do you agree?
No, I definitely agree. I think society does not support risk-taking. I think society doesn't really support people to be outside the box or creative. I think we've also, to kind of add on to that, we've also become a society that has made hating your job normal. We have a generation of millennials who have kind of challenged this notion about wanting to enjoy work, and they really get criticized quite often about it. It's a generation that has changed jobs frequently because they're looking for something specific, and they have the audacity to say, hey, I want my work to mean something. I'm not satisfied simply working in one place, and they get criticized for it. I think, a lot of times I will see people, I have a great support base, but I do see people who leave comments sometimes or say things sometimes, who I can tell are just very uncomfortable with the fact that I'm doing what I'm doing, that I'm saying that you can do things differently, that I'm saying that there's a different way. And I think like we said, as a society, we've kind of said, you're supposed to hate your job, you're supposed to hate your boss, you're not supposed to like what you do, and everybody complains about their job, and that's just life. And then to take it even a step further, I wrote a blog about this last year that was pretty popular amongst my network, where I called it the monetization of misery. And what it was about was it really pointing out how consumerism has built a billion-dollar industry out of you hating your job. And that might sound extreme, but if you really, I always challenge people, take the next few weeks and really keep your eyes open to the advertisements you're seeing, to the way businesses, the way companies are marketing to you, because a lot of times you'll see, vacation companies that, their slogans are "want to get away." They know that you don't really enjoy your day-to-day, and now they're feeding off of that, and they want you to take that vacation. That lunch place wants you to take lunch there because the lunchtime is the only time of your day you enjoy, so why don't you come and do it with us? I think alcohol companies feed off of that a lot, and I think that there's a lot of money being made off of people being unhappy at what they do and unhappy at work. And I think that that's really unfortunate, and I think what's happening is that you have these young kids, even as young as middle school, who are vibrant and smart and creative and can really have an open shot at fixing some of the major problems in this world. But what happens is that we put them in a box and we force them to learn things for a test, and then, we tell them you have to go to college and you have to go to a good college and you have to get a safe job and you have to stay for retirement, and there's value to a lot of those things, but one, there is no such thing as a safe job anymore. That's the economy we're in. I mean, I always point to the fact that they do a good job of hiding it, but Amazon, the biggest company in the world, still lays people off. You don't hear about it that often, but it does happen if you look it up. So if Amazon can lay people off, then anybody can get laid off. So it's really not about finding something that is safe. It's about creating a value, a skill set, a story that will keep you employed one way or another. And it's not about necessarily having to go to college. You can make a tremendous living doing a number of things that have nothing to do with college. It's not about necessarily going away to college or having going to an expensive college. It's about really figuring out what type of person you want to be, what kind of impact do you want to make. And it's really about, and the problem is that, all those things are nice, but that's difficult to do. It's difficult to say that you're going to go against the grain. So I think a lot of people just say, well, this is a safe route, this is what I'm being told to do, so this is what I'm going to go ahead and do. And that's kind of the opposite of what I try to teach when I coach my students.
Wow. I was going to say, what are some of the questions that your clients ask you, Kyle?
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of times I'll get questions such as, how do I deal, and this is interesting, so I get questions sometimes from clients or when I do Q&As and my keynote speeches. A lot of students want to know, how do I deal with stress? Which, I don't know if maybe it's because I didn't work terribly hard in high school, and that's one of the things I do talk about in my book is there's a lot of my regrets. So maybe I wasn't stressed because I didn't work that hard, but I don't remember being as stressed as these kids are these days, which kind of boggles my mind a little bit, but a lot of times they ask about dealing with stress. So I try to work with them through that and try to help them realize, how they can work through that and some processes. But a lot of times they want to know what the workforce is like. What do they need to know? What should they be learning? They want to know, how do I pick a major? How do I choose a career path that's going to be there in 20 years? And I try to talk to them about thinking a little more short term, and when we go through a lot of different processes. But a lot of times they just want to know about this part of life that's coming, because there's not always a wealth of knowledge, right? Because, their parents kind of grew up in a different world. I was having a conversation with somebody the other day, and I said that I think the world has changed more in the last 20 years than it did the 50 years before that. And this gentleman he's in his 60s, and he told me, and he would know because he's older than me, he says the world has changed more in the last 10 years than it has in the previous 50. And he said that there's no way that, somebody who grew up and became an adult in the 70s and the 80s could really talk about what it's like in this world today. And so there really isn't a lot of people who can kind of pass on that type of knowledge and can really talk about this is what the real world is like, and talk about the importance of understanding. Like a lot of times I'll have clients say, I'm interested in a lot of different things. What do I do? Well, first of all, make a list of all the jobs you're interested in. Tell me why, because sometimes, if you come to me and the only reason you're interested in a job is because, your mom wants you to, or your cousin makes a lot of money out of it, well, you need to give me another reason, otherwise we're going to take it off your list. But I tell them, I said, be proactive and learn about those jobs. Learn about what goes into those jobs. What do you have to go to school for? What is your day-to-day like? Because I always tell students, I tell them, if you write down 5 or 6 jobs and you thoroughly research each one, I guarantee you're going to cross one off your list, because you're going to learn about it and you're going to be like, wow, I didn't know that's what this job was like. Because it's like, and that's what I try to instill and say that, you have a lot of questions. You should have a lot of questions. You shouldn't just float through life. But if you have questions, there's means to get those questions answered. There's LinkedIn, there's social platforms, there's coaches like me, who can tap into networks. So that's really what I think students that I talk to are interested in, is just kind of learning about this real world, and I think they're really starting to realize that, hey, especially after I talk, and they start to realize, oh, there is something coming up, and I'm not really that prepared for it, and just kind of trying to learn from somebody who's currently in it.
Wow, that's excellent advice, Kyle. I'm curious to know, what do you think someone should do, like when they're facing the situation of going after their dreams, but it's not happening yet. So they get a job, and it might just be okay to them. They might even hate it, but they're working that job until they feel they're closer to where they really want to be. Do you think it's worth it to have that job in the meantime, or have that job on the side, or just go full on out after that passion?
I think it's absolutely worth it having the job, because I think the scenario that you just laid out, some people don't even get that choice, right? Because some people, you can't tell somebody, just go for your dreams. It's like, well, if it's not paying at the moment, then what am I supposed to do? And I think that is, and I'm really glad that you brought this up, because I think that's what's missing from a lot of these high-profile inspirational gurus who tell people, go for your dreams. You only live once. Launch your business. And that's great, but a lot of people can't just quit their job tomorrow and go do that. I mean, I myself, on top of everything else I do, still work in an office for a few hours a week because I'm still transitioning myself. I'm still a work in progress as well. I'm living through some of the things that I talk about. And, I've worked office, as I built this company, as I've done speaking, I've worked in jobs I didn't care for, but I didn't have much of a choice. Now, to stay motivated, I always tell people that you need to really understand, why do you want to chase this dream? What is it specifically? Like for me, I want to be able to enjoy life on a regular basis and not sit at a cube for the rest of my life. I want to be able to take my kids to school, and I want to be able to go to their baseball game, and I want to be able to go to the beach with them in the summer, and I want to be able to enjoy certain things, even when certain things are on the television, for example. As silly as it sounds, but when the World Cup is on, I can't really watch it because I'm at work. I'd like to have a career where I could work, do what I want to do, and then go back to work. So that's my why. That's what pushes me. That's where I keep going. And this is a little morbid at times. Some people say this is a morbid way of looking at it, but I try to think about, 50 years from now when I'm 80 and I'm reaching the end of my road. What do I want to look back on? What do I want to say that I did? And I know what I want to say that I did. I know what I want my obituary to say. Now, again, some people are going to say that's very morbid, but I do believe that some people will understand what I'm saying and use that. I mean, I've heard before people say, write your obituary, and there's your motivation. Mm-hmm. That's not for everybody, but the point I'm trying to get across is that you have to understand that you have to live this life every day. And if you're truly unhappy, and I'm not talking about stress, I'm not talking about climbing a corporate ladder, I'm talking about if you're truly, truly unhappy, if you wake up every day miserable, if you're constantly waiting till Friday, if you're constantly waiting for on vacation, I've talked to people. You're going to look back on this 50 years from now, and you're not going to understand why you didn't at least try to get yourself out of it. But also I would say, on top of that, to anybody who wants to create something on top of a full-time job, you have to change your mindset. If you want to create your own opportunity, if you want to start your own company and create your own thing, whatever that may be, you have to change your mindset, because you're going to be working a lot of hours and you're not getting paid for those hours. You're probably spending some money on your business. I spent years without getting really any kind of income, but I believed in what I was doing. You'll have to work on the evenings, you'll have to work the weekends occasionally. But again, it always comes back to, what do you want to do? Because the next few years might be difficult, but if you're, say, 35 and you spent 5 years building your business and you've taken off at the age of 40, and you do that for, 30 more years until you're 70, and then you sell your business, right? I mean, you gave up a few years. Those few years might have been difficult, but you got to spend 30 years living life on your own terms. So that's always my advice to people. If you have something you want to do, you should pursue it, but with the caveat being that there's no shame in still having a job, still earning that money, because on top of all of that, if you have a job that's paying all of your bills, if your business starts to take off, you can take your income from that business and reinvest it in your business, and you can keep growing it. If you're doing nothing but your business, as soon as money comes in, it's going to go out and pay your bills. So I always try to tell people, to have the long-term view, because my company makes money, and I just reinvest it in different things, and that helps us to create, even more opportunities and more awareness. So that's my very long-winded answer to that question.
No, I love that answer. It just, wow. I also am curious to know, should people plan their exit strategy for that job that they just feel like they can't do it anymore and they need to leave? Or if they really are that miserable and they decide this is the day that they want to leave, should they just leave and quit on that day, or plan up and save?
I would definitely say have a plan. I mean, if you are truly miserable, then maybe you should be looking to another job that you won't be so miserable at. You know, I mean, if you truly can't stand it anymore, it's a really bad situation, then yes, you should remove yourself. But if you're simply working a job that it's okay, you like the people you work with, but you know it's not what you want to be doing forever, and you know that it's kind of draining you day in and day out, my suggestion would be, yes, have a plan. I mean, unless you have a ton of money saved up, chances are financially you probably can't leave. So, you know, have a plan. Obviously, figure out how much money you can save. One of the things I tell people sometimes is if you are at a job and if you do like your boss, for example, or if you have some sort of respect for the company, maybe what you can do is you can create your own exit strategy and say, okay, I'm going to plan to leave in a year, but here's 10 things I want to accomplish at this job before that happens. So now at least you're saying to yourself, I'm going to accomplish these 10 things and I'm going to leave this place in a better place than where I found it. And then you can leave and, you know, there's no guilty feelings because you made that position better, you made everything better. And it kind of gives you something to kind of work towards and look forward to when you go into work since you have to be there. But I mean, it's tough to say. I would definitely have a strategy, but don't get discouraged if you say I'm going to leave in a year and in a year your company's not ready for you to leave yet. Because you don't know how long things are going to take. You don't know how long, you know, it's going to take to produce whatever products you want to produce. I mean, you could decide today to chase your dreams and you might not launch for another 6 months. So, does the clock start today, or does it start in 6 months when your company actually launches? I can't. Only you can answer that question.
Yes.
But I mean, you know, so that's the biggest thing. I mean, like I said, I've been doing this for a few years, and I'm still not 100%, you know, on it yet because I know it takes time. It takes a long time. But I think if you carve out 10, 15 hours a week to your passion, and once your day job is fueling your passion, it's a little more tolerable because you're like, okay, I have to be here, and it's just something that I have to do. So, and at least you know that, okay, you know, the money I'm making here I can put into my business. So it becomes a little more tolerable. But yeah, have that plan, have those things that you want to accomplish beforehand so you know that you're not leaving them in the lurch. You know that you're leaving them in a better place. Unless you don't like them at all, then you can forget that part. But, you know, and say to yourself, you know, in 1 year I'm going to reevaluate because perhaps, and again, this is very specific to what job you're in, but maybe in 1 year you can stay in that industry, but instead of working 40 hours a week, you can go somewhere and work 25 hours a week. And you can work 25 hours a week and you can make up the rest of the income through your company. And maybe a year after that, then you move to maybe just freelancing in that industry and picking up extra change. And then a year after that, then you're going. So it's really about open mind. You know, like I'm also have a marketing background, and it's not really my passion, but I'm always about marketing projects because I know the big picture. I know the money I make from that can go towards different things. So it's really about just having an open mind because, like I said, I started as a youth speaker, but I saw opportunities in other areas to help students, and now I pursue those services in those areas.
So what about the real world are students not prepared for, and why?
From what I gather, and this is, again, when I talk about these things, it's because I talk to so many graduates, I think a lot of them are not prepared for how long they spend at their job. They're not prepared for the 40 hours a week, plus the commuting, plus the adult responsibilities, plus the being there every day and sitting at a desk. I think that they're unprepared because, one, they're flat out not really told about it. They might be told they're going to have a job, but one of the things I do in my speeches is I have a slide that breaks down the hours of your week. and it really talks about how many hours you're actually awake, and how many of those hours are taken up by your job in one way or another. It's really when we do all the math, it comes down to 2/3 of your week. And I think that's very eye-opening to people, and I don't think they really put that together. So I think that's one thing. Two, I think just the amount of adult responsibilities that you have to have, you're responsible for once you grow up, I think can be very overwhelming. And I think students make a lot of poor financial decisions because they don't really know any better. In my book, we go through every year of high school, and I give the student goals to achieve. And one of the goals has nothing to do with academics. One of the goals each school year is take something that your parents are doing for you and start to do it yourself. Because you need to learn those things, because there's probably 10 to 15 things they're doing for you. And there's a lot of people who, wait till they're 25 years old and have their first apartment, and now all of a sudden they have to do these things. And they're either late on their credit card payments, or they don't go to the doctor, which is not a healthy thing because they've never had to make a doctor's appointment before, or they're not paying into retirement because they don't understand it. There's a number of things I think that that students just are not prepared for, and I don't think it's anybody's fault, and that's the biggest thing. Sometimes people say to me, Kyle, who's to blame? I was like, I don't think anybody's to blame, because blame doesn't get you anywhere. It never will. So I don't bother with blame. I bother with, solutions. I don't care who caused the problem. I want to know how we're going to solve it, because we can point fingers all day. It's all we do anymore. And that doesn't matter. So I don't think anybody's to blame. I certainly don't think teachers are to blame. I think the problem is that teachers are, completely up against it in every way imaginable. We don't pay them anything. We hold them to ridiculous standards. We overcrowd the classrooms. We get rid of all the creative classes, so these kids have no outlet. I think that's a problem. I think that the schools, need to pay teachers better. We need to respect teachers better. So I definitely don't think that's the problem. I think that these students really don't know what's coming next. They have no idea. And why would they pay attention? Why would they, try to understand certain things about finance? Why would they, if they go away to college, for example, and everybody's in the dorm room, drinking beers and playing video games, and the college is trying to have a guest speaker come or a networking night, that student's never going to go to that because he doesn't understand why he's supposed to. Because society has told him, oh, it's college, you're supposed to party, you're supposed to have a good time, this is the best time of your life, and nobody's saying, hey, this is what a network is, this is why it's important, this is why your resume is important, this is why your first job is important. Your first job is important because you're going to have to pay back your student loans, and they don't really care about that because they didn't research their student loans. They just signed whatever paper was in front of them, and then all of a sudden they graduate and they have to pay $500 a month to someone called Sally Mae, and they don't understand why. And now again, I'm just pulling all of this from the research I've done and the people I've talked to, and it's because there's a part of life you don't see coming. That's chapter 1 of my book. It's how I started. And this, being an adult and being in the real world and entering the workforce, is a part of life that we don't see coming. And there are certain things in life you can never be fully prepared for, but I've noticed through my coaching that when I walk students through, hey, here's what's coming next in life, they're much more prepared for it. So I think that the biggest problem is that these students just don't know what's coming next, and we need to find ways to fix that, because then they'll understand why they need to take advantage of the opportunities that education can give them.
Wow. With the services that To the Next Step offers, which would you say do you think seem to be most resonant among your clients, or most effective?
Definitely the coaching, because the coaching is one-on-one. It's very cost-effective, and it's very budget-friendly, and I did that on purpose because I don't want anyone to feel like they can't afford it. I always tell people, if you're interested, we'll make the money part of it work. We always do. So the coaching is very personal. It's one-on-one. Everything is hyper, I don't know what word I'm looking for, but, we really make sure everything's personalized, and we have a really specific program where we send out a questionnaire and we take your answers, and we create a plan, and we create learning objectives and coaching outcomes. And one of the great things is that the student can say, you know what, I'm curious about this, I'd like to learn more about that. And then me as the coach, in between sessions, I go out and I do the homework. I give them homework sometimes, but they can also give me homework. For example, I had a college client who had 3 summer internships she was accepted to, and she didn't know which one to take. She was a little overwhelmed. So I told her, I said, I will research all three companies and I will tell you what my opinion is. And after I did, I told her, I said, I think you should take this one and here's why. And I told her that because based on here's what I've learned in my own experience, here's what I think is going to fit you and what you've been working towards in college, and here's what some people that the major you have, I know a few people in my network that have that major, and this is what they're saying. So the coaching is as personalized as you can get. The book has been a big hit. I think the book is a big hit because I think it's easy to read. I think it's really a guide, it's really a hand-holding guide where I take you through every year and explain what's important and what to do and here are your goals. So yeah, I think those two things have been great. And I'm really excited about this online course that we've launched recently called How to Select the Right College for You. Because again, we give so much time and energy to the college application process. Yeah. And we really don't talk about the college selection process. We really don't talk about selecting the right college. What makes a college worth your money? College should be earning your money. It's not just about them choosing you. It's also about you choosing them. And of course, we have an entire lesson on student loans because there's this epidemic, there it is. Epidemic in this country where everyone's in debt because nobody knew what they were signing up for. And it blows my mind that people sign papers and they don't know, but when you're that age, you're being told you have to go to college, you have to go to a good college, and you have to do whatever it takes to get there. Oh, okay, well, I guess I'll just sign up for this loan because this is what I have to do because I want to be successful and this is the only way to do it. So, we cover a lot of that in the course, which I'm really excited about. I'm really excited about because school's going to be back in session soon here in the Northeast, and people start looking at colleges, and I think it's going to be really valuable. It's something you can watch on demand, on your own. Plus, you get my email with it, so you can ask me questions as well. I'm very interactive, so I'm really excited about that.
That is fantastic, Kyle. Kyle Grappone, everyone. Thank you so much for talking to So Booking Cool today. It was truly a pleasure to speak with you. And let everyone know how they can keep up with you, how they can get the book, and just check out To the Next Step in general, as well as any upcoming appearances that we should be on the lookout for.
Sure. So I would say the best way is to go to my website, which is www.tothenextstep.org. And I'm sure we could throw that into the show notes or whatever. Yeah. But it's the next step. So tothenextstep.org. And I would encourage anybody to go on there and simply fill out the Let's Talk form. Even if you're not ready because anybody who fills out that form gets a 1-hour introductory call for free. I talk to the student, I talk to the parent, and we talk about how coaching can help the student. We also talk about the other services. But even if you're saying, you know what, I'm not really ready for that call yet, that's fine, because I don't call you. I send you an email first just to introduce myself. But I would say fill that out because, one, you'll get my free ebook, The Top 5 Regrets of College Grads. So that's right off the bat. It's a win. It's something you get for free simply by filling out the form. Then you're also included on our monthly newsletter. We just send it out once a month. It's something to keep up to date on us. My speaking engagements will be up there. Any deals I have will be up there. But the website's a great place to learn more about the coaching, to learn more about our classes that we're going to be rolling out this year and next year. You can buy the book on the website as well. But really, I really encourage people to go there. So it's tothenextstep.org. Fill out the Let's Talk form. You go to the menu, you can click on Let's Talk. And like I said, fill out the form, and even if you're not ready for your free intro call, even if you're just dipping your toe in the water, you'll be in our database. You'll get the free ebook regardless. I send that over right away after you sign up. And I think it's going to be really valuable. And like I said, you can fill that form out, and I contact you, and we can have a conversation. Or if you want, you can just say, you know what, I'm just here for the ebook. That's fine too. Regardless, we'd love to just kind of get your information, keep you in the loop.
Wow, that is fantastic. And Kyle, I think it's really great, the work that you're doing. So just keep it up. I know you will.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
No problem. And thank you to all the listeners. Until next time, So Booking Cool.